Can the Niners develop starting offensive linemen?
I think it's TBD because I know, like, all right, so let's look at what have they really invested in this position to develop. Okay, so they drafted Mike McGlinchey with the ninth overall pick, right? Ninth overall pick.
They drafted Aaron Banks.
They drafted Aaron, but after that,
they drafted day 3 guys.
What?
They drafted day 3 guys after that.
Yeah, day 3 guys.
Pivots, more, yeah.
Yeah, if you look in this league, you don't find those guys in the 6th, 7th, 5th round. Like, tackles exist, starting tackles, you get them largely in the 1st round, some in the 2nd, and then you here and there you can find them in the 3rd. There's not many guys that are late round picks. So you're not really investing the resources that you need to in this position. And the first time they spent an interior pick was on Aaron Banks. And honestly, like, I know that he was inactive all last year, but I don't know that to me that's an indicator that he's not good, because the 49ers have taken other young players. Now they didn't make Brandon Ayuk inactive, but they weren't playing him. If you extrapolate that over to Aaron Banks, could it be possible that Aaron Banks was actually decent, but they just didn't want to play him? It's possible, because it happened with their other players. They didn't want to play. They didn't want to play they didn't want to play Ambry Thomas for the longest time. All these Trey Lance, they wouldn't play Trey Lance. So yeah, it's a little alarming that he was inactive, but I don't necessarily know that means that he can't.
Little alarming. Dude, they didn't want him to back up. They didn't want him in the game. Trey Lance could go in the game. They didn't want Banks in the game. Like, they're like, if anything happens, it's on freaking. Who was their backup guard? Who was their backup guard last year? I don't even know.
Even so, if I gave you that, that means for 5 positions, right? Five positions, you've only spent real capital, a 1st round pick once, and then a 2nd round pick.
Okay, well, the 1st round pick never got better. Like, they could have taken Colton Miller, who everyone said had upside, but they went with the right tackle because was pro ready. He never got better. And then they developed Daniel Brunskill, who's a low-level starter in the NFL. Other than that, they haven't proven they can. And last year was disconcerting with Aaron Banks. So if they want to take another shot in round 2, be my guest, but I wouldn't advise it.
I think the issue is not necessarily the development. I think you have to put more resources into it. I think they're not putting enough. What did they spend? What did they put into their wide receiver position? Like, how many 2nd round, 3rd round draft picks did they put into that position? You know, like,
yeah, it's true.
At
they could take an offensive lineman in round 2 again this year. I mean, they could. How about one from Notre Dame? That works out.
How about round 3? Like, take round 3. How about round 4? They outside of McGlinchey and Banks, it's round 5, round 6. And then if
the Niners really want to get legit starters on the offensive line, you probably got to get those guys in round 1, to your point.
Interior, I think interior you can get I think later, but
that's what they said when they drafted Aaron Banks. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Even Josh Garnett was a 1st round pick. It's not that simple.
But I think you address it with more draft picks, though. Like, not people like to look at the draft like as if every draft pick is going to pan out. It doesn't happen that way. Like, you have to invest in it. It's the 49ers, if they had got 3 starters from last year's draft, that's a really, really good draft.
But coming back to the original question, like, can the Niners develop starting offensive linemen? They haven't proved that they can. They haven't proven it. Maybe they can, but they haven't proven it. So is it smarter for them to pour more 2nd round picks into guards, or maybe go get one in free agency? Trade for one. Because considering they've had no success doing the one thing and some success doing the other.
Well, I would say to you, do one or the other, because I think the problem isn't that. I think the problem is investment in the position. I don't think it's like. I think if you throw enough picks at the position, you'll probably get it right. I think, like, or you
talked a lot about the benefit of having Chris Kosaric. You mentioned it right now, and Bobby Turner. I don't think they have that effect. I mean, maybe Chris Forrester's good, but I haven't seen him develop anyone on this team yet.
I think you got to give him more. I think you got to give him more tools. Sure, you gave him Trent Williams, but like shit, I can coach Trent Williams. And then Alex Mack, like obviously he's okay, but he's older. But I think you have to invest in that position. Like, what have they really invested? They've invested money in Trent Williams.
Seems like their best investments have all come not in the draft. Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Weston Richburg, Alex Mack. Even Daniel Brunskill was undrafted. Like, none of their draft picks on the offensive line have been good starters. Like, you had McGlinchey and a bunch of backups. So maybe if they spent more first-round picks on the position, because apparently second round wasn't good enough last year. But they don't have a first-round pick this year, next year.
You're making that conclusion with when they only spent 1 second-round pick on that position, though. Like, if you made that same assumption and did that with every other position off of 1 second-round pick, like, you can't really make that assumption off of 1 second-round pick.
I'm not making an assumption. I'm just saying they have no track record of success on this route. They have some track record of success on this route. I'm taking that route.
I think the failure rate. I think the average failure rate on second-round picks. I think it's in like I think it's in the 40%. I think it's 40%. 40. It's if anything, it's.
Then get that second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, because that's going to change the franchise. Right?
They're going to get two. They're going to get two.
Yeah, Big Dez says Niners going to play the long game, draft and make moves, and sign the best who's left after Clowney, for example. Well,
they were kind of in the market for him a couple of years ago. I mean,
Darius Smith to the freaking Vikings. Well, good for Minnesota. I can't get over that. Anyway, wow, that's our show for today. Ryan Starr right at the buzzer says outside the box, if Ambry Game's weight becomes free safety. This team needs to stop changing people's positions. Sorry, Ryan, but
right. That's
stop doing that.
Right. That's another thing. They drafted these tackles in the 6th and 5th round, and then they're like, oh, they're gonna play guard. Like, they drafted Aaron Banks last year, and he was
Tom Jensen at the buzzer too. Come on, coach. 2 first, McGlinchey OT and Garnett OG.
Garnett wasn't
Banks in the 2nd. Still, that's freaking Parag and the scouts. It's the same scouting department. Meanwhile, no first or second on secondary since Tartan 15. Yeah, what about that, coach?
Garnett wasn't.
It's the same scouting department, man. It's the same philosophy. I'm saying Parag, I think, and the fact that they haven't taken a DB has spanned multiple regimes as well. They need to put investments in the secondary in the draft. I want secondary in the draft, offensive line, and free agency.
I'd agree with investment in secondary in the draft, but I would say the same thing if you missed on secondary picks, and then you're looking at 1 second round pick and saying, oh, they suck at drafting in.
I didn't say they suck, but I feel like you're trying to say that they could do it. I'm like, well, there's no evidence of that either.
Right, I agree with that, but there's no evidence that they're not good at it because they haven't invested the resources in it.
They've invested more than they've invested in the secondary.
No,
when they draft a guard and give him number 65, it's over. It's over every time. Kiss of death. So I'm telling you right now, Aaron Banks better change that number. It's not going to work for you. It's cursed.